Who sent you here? Go and beg somewhere else. You are blocking people's way.
Those were the words a young girl named Amora shouted at a frail, blind old man sitting in the dust outside the village market. She said it loud. She said it with a smile on her face. And the people around her laughed. Nobody helped him. Nobody even looked at him twice. They just walked around him like he was a stone in the road. But then another girl stopped. She looked at the old man. She looked at the only food she had in her hand, the one small meal her sick grandmother had packed for her that morning. And without thinking twice, without asking anyone's permission, she crouched down and placed the food gently into his cracked bowl. The crowd saw it. Amora saw it. And Amora laughed even louder. But what nobody in that market knew, what nobody in that entire village knew, was who that blind old man really was. And what he had been quietly watching for over 20 years. This is the story of Adaeze. A girl who had nothing. A girl who gave anyway. And a girl whose one small act of kindness was about to open a door that would shock the whole village forever. Adaeze was 17 years old and she already knew what it meant to carry pain quietly. Both her parents had died when she was just 9 years old, taken by sickness within months of each other, and since that day, it had been only her and her grandmother surviving together in a small house on the edge of Aduka village. The house had a leaking roof. The garden behind it was small and stubborn. And every single morning, before the sun even finished rising, Adaeze was already awake, fetching water, sweeping the compound, cooking whatever little food they had, and still making it to school on time without ever complaining to anyone. Her grandmother was sick and growing weaker every season. Adaeze knew this. She saw it every morning in the way the old woman moved slower, breathed harder, held onto the wall when she thought Adaeze was not looking. But Adaeze never said anything about it out loud. She just kept doing what needed to be done. That particular morning, her grandmother had packed her one small wrap of EBA and soup tied carefully in a banana leaf. It was the only food in the house. Adaeze held it as she walked to school, planning to save it for the afternoon when her stomach would start pressing her. She had been hungry before. She knew how to manage it. Now compare that to Amora. Amora was also 17, also in the same class as Adaeze at school. But their lives were completely different. Amora's father was the wealthiest trader in Aduka. Her uniform was always clean and pressed. She had friends who followed her everywhere and laughed at everything she said. She was the kind of girl who never had to think about food, or school fees, or a grandmother's hospital bills. Life had been soft and easy for Amora, and she wore that softness like armor, like it made her better than everyone around her. And that morning, those two girls, one who had everything and one who had almost nothing, both walked into the same market. Both saw the same blind old man sitting in the dust. But only one of them stopped. Up close, Adaeze could see just how bad the old man's condition was. His lips were dry and cracked. His hands were shaking slightly as they held the empty bowl. His cloth was old and faded. He smelled like someone who had been sitting outside in the heat for many hours with no food and no water. Adaeze did not ask herself whether he deserved her food. She did not calculate what she would lose by giving it. She did not look around to see if anyone was watching her. She just crouched down beside him and placed her only meal gently into his bowl. She told him softly to eat. That it was not much, but it was something. The old man's shaking hands found the bowl. He went very still for a moment, like the kindness had surprised him more than hunger ever could. But Amora had not gone far. She turned around, saw what Adaeze had done, and walked back with her face full of disbelief. She began to mock Adaeze right there in front of the whole market. She asked if Adaeze had lost her mind. She said Adaeze had just given away her only food to a useless beggar who did not even know her name, who would not remember her face tomorrow, who could not do anything for her in return. She said Adaeze would go hungry the whole day because of a stranger. She called her a fool. She said it loudly, confidently, like she was proud of herself for saying it. Some people in the market nodded. Some shook their heads. Some looked at Adaeze with pity, like she had made a terrible mistake. Adaeze felt the heat of shame rise in her chest. But she kept her face calm. She stood up slowly, straightened her school bag, and began walking toward school without saying a single word back to Amora. She told herself quietly, let them call her foolish. That man was hungry and she had food. It was that simple. Some things do not need an explanation. But then, just as she was walking away, a voice stopped her completely. It was the old man's voice. And it was strange. Because it was not the weak, trembling voice of a sick beggar. It was clear. Steady. Strong. Like a voice that belonged to someone who had been waiting a very long time to speak. He called her his daughter. And he told her to come back. Adaeze turned around slowly and walked back toward him. The old man was reaching into the warm bag beside him, his hand moving carefully, like someone who knew exactly what was inside and wanted to handle it with respect. When he pulled it out, Adaeze leaned forward to see. It was a seed. Small and black and perfectly round, so smooth it looked like it had never touched soil or sunlight or time. It sat in the old man's palm like it was simply waiting for the right hands to hold it. He told her to take it. She stepped closer and lifted it from his palm. The moment it touched her hand, she felt something unexpected. It was cool. Surprisingly, impossibly cool for a morning that warm. She stared at it, confused, turning it slowly between her fingers. She asked him what it was. He told her to plant it behind her grandmother's house that very night. To water it once and only once. Then to leave it alone and trust it. She asked what it would grow into. He told her it would become whatever she needed most. Then he leaned slightly closer and lowered his voice, not because he was weak, but because what he was about to say was important enough to be said carefully. He told her not to tell a single person about the seed. Not a friend, not a classmate, not anyone. He said the moment she told someone, the gift would lose its power. He told her to keep doing good, even when it hurt her, even when people mocked her, even when nobody was watching and nobody was clapping. He said goodness is never wasted. It always travels quietly until it finds its way back home, carrying more than it left with. Adaeze looked up to ask one more question. The space where the old man had been sitting was empty. No bowl. No bag. No cloth. No footprints in the dust. Nothing at all, as if he had simply never existed. Her skin rose with goosebumps from her arms to the back of her neck. She looked around the market. People were buying and selling and shouting and moving like nothing had happened. Nobody else seemed to notice that anything strange had just occurred right there in the open. Her fingers tightened around the seed. That night, she went behind her grandmother's house under the dark sky and dug a small hole in the soil with her bare hands. She placed the seed inside, covered it carefully, and poured exactly 1 cup of water on top. Then she went inside, her stomach empty from the food she had given away, and she lay down and closed her eyes. She did not know what to expect. She did not even fully believe anything would happen. She just chose to trust. The next morning Adaeze woke before sunrise the way she always did. She went behind the house to check the soil, and her feet stopped moving completely. A plant had grown overnight. Not a small, uncertain sprout pushing weakly through the dirt. A full, strong, deep green plant with thick leaves that caught the first light of the morning like they were made of something richer than ordinary green. It stood there solid and alive, like it had been growing for weeks, not hours. Like it had always been there and was only now allowing itself to be seen. Her grandmother appeared at the doorway, leaning on her stick. She looked at the plant. She looked at Adaeze. She looked at the plant again. She said nothing. But her eyes were wide and full of something that looked very much like recognition. At school that day, Amara made sure the whole class heard what had happened at the market.
Old blind man on the
She
road.
told the story with laughter, performing it like entertainment, the foolish girl who gave her only food to a dirty beggar and went hungry all day for nothing. Her friends shook with laughter. A few classmates looked at Adaeze with second-hand embarrassment. Adaeze opened her textbook and read. She did not respond. She had decided a long time ago that not every fire deserves more fuel. But something quiet was happening around Adaeze that nobody could explain and nobody could stop. Her grandmother woke the following morning with more energy than she had shown in months. She stood straighter. She spoke clearer. She ate her food without struggling. The difference was so noticeable that even the neighbors commented on it. Then an envelope arrived from a distant uncle, money, sent without any request and without any explanation attached. Just money, at exactly the right time, when they needed it most. And then a teacher who had taught Adaeze for 2 years without ever singling her out pulled her aside after class one afternoon. He told her there was a regional scholarship examination the following month. He said he had been quietly observing her work all year. He said he wanted to submit her name as the school's candidate. He said he believed, genuinely believed, that she could win it. Adaeze stood in front of him unable to find words. She had applied for nothing. She had asked for nothing. She had simply planted a seed, watered it once, and kept doing what was right. Amara noticed the changes. She started watching Adaeze from across the classroom with narrowed eyes and a tight jaw, trying to figure out what was happening to the quiet, poor girl who was suddenly getting attention from teachers and money from nowhere. Something was going on. And Amara did not like that she could not see what it was. 3 weeks after that morning at the market, a black government vehicle drove slowly into Aduka village like it carried important news and wanted everyone to feel its weight before it delivered it. Officials in clean pressed suits stepped out and asked to speak with the village chief immediately. The elders were called. Word spread fast the way it always does in a small village, and within minutes, people were coming out of their houses, their shops, their kitchens, gathering under the big oak tree in the center of the square where the officials had set up their documents. The lead official waited until the crowd was quiet. Then he spoke clearly, making sure every single person present could hear every word. He said they were there representing the estate of Chief Emmanuel Okafor, a philanthropist known across the region, who had passed away 17 days ago. He explained that Chief Okafor had made an extraordinary decision many years before his death. For the last 22 years of his life, Chief Okafor had been traveling from village to village, town to town, disguised as a poor man, a sick elder, a street beggar, specifically to test the true character of ordinary people. Not their words. Not their church attendance. Not their reputation. Their actual character, what they did when nobody important was watching and there was nothing obvious to gain. He had kept detailed records. He had watched thousands of people pass him by. He had waited patiently for over 2 decades. And before he died, he left a will that named the recipients of his estate, people whose kindness he had witnessed and recorded personally. The official looked down at the document in his hands. The square was so silent you could hear the leaves moving in the trees above. He read the name. Adaeze Nwosu. Aduka village. For one long moment, nobody moved. Then the entire crowd moved at once, heads turning, people stepping aside, necks craning, searching for the girl in the faded uniform who was standing near the back of the gathering with both hands pressed against her mouth and tears beginning to fill her eyes. The will included a full education trust fund in Adaeze's name. A piece of land on the most valuable side of the village. And complete, permanent coverage of her grandmother's medical care for the rest of the old woman's life. Amara's mother heard the announcement from her shop and came running so fast her wrapper was barely tied. She grabbed Amara hard by the arm in front of everyone and dragged her forward toward the center of the square. She was shaking with anger and shame. She told Amara, loudly, so that every person watching could hear, to go and apologize. To apologize to Adaeze for mocking her. To apologize for laughing at the old man. To apologize for every single word she had said that morning at the market with a smile on her face. Amora opened her mouth. The girl who always had something to say, the girl who had never once in her life been without a sharp word ready, opened her mouth and found nothing. No words. No laughter. No confidence. Just silence and a face full of a shame she had never felt before. That evening, Adaeze sat beside her grandmother on the old wooden bench outside their house. The green plant behind them caught the last warmth of the setting sun. The grandmother held her granddaughter's hand for a long time without speaking. Then she said quietly that she had always known. She said a good heart never goes to waste in this world. It only travels for a while, sometimes through pain, sometimes through hunger, sometimes through shame, before it finds its way back home carrying far more than it left with. Adaeze rested her head on her grandmother's shoulder and let the tears come quietly. She thought about the market. She thought about the cracked bowl. She thought about the impossible coolness of that small black seed in her warm palm. She thought about the empty space in the dust where an old man had sat, and then was simply gone. And she held on to one truth that had now carved itself permanently into the center of her life. She had not given her food to impress anyone. She had not known who that man was. She had not done it for a reward or a scholarship or land or money or any of the things that had now found their way to her door. She had done it because she could not walk past a hungry person when she had food in her hand. That was the whole story. That was the entire reason. And somehow, that single moment of simple, quiet, unseen kindness had been enough to change everything. Later that night, long after the village had gone quiet, there was a soft knock at their gate. Adaeze opened it slowly. Amora was standing outside. Alone. No friends beside her, no sharp words prepared, no confidence holding her shoulders up. She looked smaller than Adaeze had ever seen her look. Her eyes were red. Her hands were clasped in front of her like she did not know what else to do with them. She opened her mouth to speak. Then stopped. Then tried again. And what Amora said in that moment, standing at that gate in the dark, and what Adaeze chose to do in response, is a story that will surprise you even more than this one.